What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Crazy Face Uno podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you would like to support the show and help us tell more stories like the one you're about to hear, please visit crazyfaceuno.com today to purchase items from our online store or to donate. As always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It's my honor and privilege to introduce my guest today. He's an old friend from the Invisible Children days, John Pockets Beaton. Welcome, John.
Hey, thank you for having me, Shane.
Absolutely.
I'm so big.
Had to throw the old nickname in there.
Oh man, I haven't been called Pockets in ages, but to date remains probably my favorite nickname.
Yes, it's great. You and I, it's funny because I've had a lot of guests on from Invisible Children, you know, like where we've met, and you and I didn't meet at Invisible Children, but we met before then, through a mutual friend and because of Invisible Children, more so.
Yep.
But yeah, we ended up being at Invisible Children together for several years, and oh, we got an echo there.
Let me turn down. I'm actually in my car, so you're on speaker.
Gotcha.
Any echo still?
I think it's better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's great.
I can switch to a Bluetooth headset if needed.
Cool, yeah. I'll let you know. But yeah, so it was at Invisible Children. We spent several years together there, and you had a couple different fun projects that maybe we can get into if we get to it. But
yeah,
what are you doing these days? What are you up to?
All sorts of things. You know, as far as like professionally, I work for GoFundMe.
Okay, cool.
Which you have heard of.
Yeah, I wrote that down, but I didn't know if that was still up to date or accurate or.
Yeah. I have the exciting or eye-rolling title of customer happiness lead, kind of depending on who you ask.
Nice,
but
I like it.
I really enjoy it.
What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so it essentially means I'm a frontline manager. But
okay.
I feel like that, like the title of manager has become pretty like boring, and like you just kind of imagine like this like lifeless bureaucrat. And I actually have a ton of fun at my job with my agents.
Nice.
What it means is that I have a team of 8 customer happiness agents.
Okay.
And I'm in charge of just like making sure that they are thriving, happy, successful, challenged in their careers. And when I'm not working with my agents, I'm working on various projects to support the department. So like right now I'm working on rolling out live chat support to our team.
That's cool. Man, that's really cool. That's and GoFundMe, like they're a really great company from my perspective, at least, from like just helping a lot of people and doing a lot of good in the world. That's really cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't work for them if they didn't have a strong ethos. In my experience, in my 5.5 years at the company, they've shown to have a moral compass, and when things are like morally gray or there's a debate, the executive team has been willing to like have those discussions and debates publicly. So it's it's a company I'm proud to be a part of. It's like you mentioned, we used to work together at Invisible Children, and that job had a lot of meaning in it. So it was important to me for when I have a job after that to be making some sort of positive impact on the world.
Yeah, I remember when we were at Invisible Children, Margie Dillenberg at one point in time was like, you're ruined basically for the rest of your life, like this place it's created this environment that is special that you're just not going to find outside of Invisible Children. And I think a lot of people sought that for a long time. And it's been something that probably can't be replicated, but there's still companies that are doing great things out there, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think to kind of echo what you're saying, it impressed upon me a high standard for uh, the company culture that I seek out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I could imagine it being tough if you don't find that.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful and was very lucky. I mean, I spent a good 6 months bouncing around between not so great cultures.
Sure.
But I was lucky enough to find one that, like, this one's quite special as well. And, like, I credit Invisible Children for, like, setting the gold standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
For
Same.
the community I want to work with.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely set the gold standard, and it's interesting thinking about, you know, like how to be a manager, like what are the good aspects? You know, there was a lot of really great aspects, and one thing that keeps coming up on the podcast and like from people from Invisible Children is just the empowerment that was given to us, even as employees, you know, of different projects and at Invisible Children, where it was, hey, you're really excelling at that, go for it, you know, like take the lead on that, and it gave us an opportunity, or at least myself, it gave myself an opportunity to, you know, be challenged in an area and learn skills in an area that I probably would never have gotten the opportunity to have had I not been working for Invisible Children and not worked in an environment like that.
Yeah, it's set me up well for success in my career thus far. We have this thing at GoFundMe called Bias to Action.
Okay.
And what that essentially means is like celebrating those who are biased towards action. So like towards taking action when they see a problem that needs to be fixed, they go after it and they fix it. If the company's facing a problem, they try and think up ways to solve it. And you know, it's kind of a hard skill to teach.
Yeah.
And you know, because that was encouraged at Invisible Children, it's like it's set me up well at GoFundMe for like, there's a lot of problems out there to solve, and because I've had more of a go get 'em attitude, it's really let me like rise to a place of leadership within the department.
That's awesome. Do you think it can be taught, or is it something that has to happen naturally and like organically?
I do think some people are more like more naturally lean towards that, but I do think it can be taught.
Sure.
But not quickly. Like, I think you have to be in an environment where you're encouraged to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then you start taking those steps and you start to feel what that feels like.
Sure.
Then you can like carry that with you.
Yeah, because I feel like it's almost like a trust, you know, of like you have to like, or almost feel comfortable and have this trust within the environment and the people that you're like elbow to elbow with, you know, and it fosters this environment that then evokes that kind of like tenacity and like go-getterness, you know, or go-get-emness.
Yeah, I think it's really like 360 trust, like trust from the leadership to empower people to go do it, and then trust from those doing it that their like ideas and actions will be well received, because you're not always going to get it right. Yeah. But you know, even if my agents try something and they don't get it right, well, once they explain their reason to me, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, maybe this idea didn't work out, but I'm glad you tried it. Like, keep at it. Yeah. Yeah. Like reevaluating that and like, just, it's well received. So then it's not like, how dare you do that? Like how, you know, it's how you respond almost. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Exactly. You were mentioning before we got going, you've got a stand-up gig tonight. Is that what I heard? I do. I'm on an improv team. Okay. Called Hail Satin. Okay. And we were inspired by hilarious typos. Yeah. Okay. We kind of landed on that one because it has the kind of hilarious effect of like it's supposed to be this like really like heavy, maybe evil statement. Sure. And it ends up just sounding like fluffy and ridiculous when you make that typo. Yeah. And so our logo is like a pentagram made out of like ribbons, like pink ribbon. Oh, that's funny. So it's just kind of a ridiculous juxtaposition. And the fact that we got a Halloween show, it was both pretty lucky and apropos.
Nice.
So we have a certain style that we do, and we're gonna do a spooky themed show.
Okay.
So, like, because it's improv, we're not like there's like nothing planned in advance. The only thing we've agreed on is that whatever we come up with, we're gonna make it spooky.
Sure.
So.
And
we've been practicing a lot
theme.
of spooky.
Yeah, like theme it up. It's Halloween. Mm-hmm. Then close. Yeah, Today's Halloween.
Today's Halloween. Yeah.
Today is Halloween. So if you're listening, we're recording this on Halloween evening. Yeah. How long have you been involved in that and been doing that?
I've been involved in improv for about 2 years now. Kind of only got into it. I set like what's it called? A New Year's resolution for myself. It took me until like October of that year to get to it, but I did it. And I took an improv class, and I really enjoyed it. It's like there's a lot of team. There's a lot of trust. It's very challenging, and you only succeed like if you and your team are supporting each other. So it's pretty common before shows for us to go around and clap each other on the shoulder and like look each other in the eye and say, "I got your back. I got your back."
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean,
trust.
Yeah, that's it's fun. I'm sure you've built a really close rapport with like the group of people that you do that with too, just because you do have their back. Yeah,
and I haven't shared this with anyone except my partner. Ooh. But it's good news in the case of like self-care, but perhaps bad news in the story of improv.
Okay.
It'll be my last improv show.
Oh,
wow. And my team doesn't know that yet.
Well, good thing it's not posting tonight. They'll have some time to find it out.
By saying it loud on the air. So, I've loved improv, and it's been a great challenge. To be honest, my days are quite full, both weekends and weekdays.
Sure.
And I'm trying to, I don't want to, I suppose we'll get to this eventually, but I do some fire spinning.
Yeah.
And practiced that a lot over the year, and I've gotten pretty good at it. And I'm kind of getting to the point where, yes, I'm good, but if I want to grow, as far as performing, I need to market myself and get myself out there a little more.
Sure.
And so all that to say that I'm really kind of wanting to make more space in my life.
Yeah.
For fire spinning and for rope dart in particular, which is the prop that I spin with.
Cool. Yeah.
And so you kind of made the tough decision that, like, as much as I enjoy improv, it's unfortunately taking up some space that I would rather put towards another passion of mine.
Yeah. I think that's good, though. I think that's healthy. I mean, like you said, it's like it's not that you don't want to do, improv, but you found something that you enjoy and that you love, and you're chasing that. And I think that, you can't just go through life and stay in the same old routine. Sometimes you got to chase after the things, and your interests change and people change, man. You and I like knew each other. I feel like I was still such like a young pup. Back in the day, like I've changed so much, and so much of, there's still a lot of things that are very much the same to the core of who I am. But I feel that my interests have changed, the things I've gotten involved with since then. And, and I think that we're humans, and we're ever evolving and ever changing and ever always growing. And when we can listen to ourselves, I think that, and make those changes appropriately, I think it's really good. I think it's healthy. That's really cool, man. I'm proud of you for, kind of deciding and taking that step. I mean, I know that it's hard to do sometimes, of like stepping away and afraid of like letting people down, or, like I don't know. I commend you. That's a really brave thing to do and really cool, and stepping out and chasing something that you're interested in.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. You said it very eloquently, and ask me in a week or two after I've done the break and start time in the direction that I want to go.
For sure, for sure. I feel like this is, I mean, I remember you as this person. You always had these like unique interests. Like you always had like fun things, and back in San Diego, you were doing. Maybe you still are. This is the question. Maybe you were doing ultimate frisbee.
I was. We can say ultimate frisbee went the way of improv.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
And grateful for the time I spent doing it. I played ultimate frisbee for a decade.
Yeah.
And very much loved it, and it made up a lot of my first friends when I moved to San Diego after Invisible Children hired me as staff in 2012.
Yeah.
And so eternally grateful for the sport and the community. But yeah, kind of made the same call. And like ultimate frisbee was the first time I ever made that decision to kind of like part ways with an interest that I really did enjoy and love, but wasn't certainly as best it could.
Yeah.
And from that space that Ultimate created came improv and fire spinning.
Sure.
So I know that this sort of thing is the right call, even if it's not easy.
Yeah. You got to trust yourself and know that you're like making the right decision. And when you've done it, and when you start like making it's kind of like our conversation with, the jobs and taking risks and stepping out. And, it's kind of the same thing. Like it's not that you can't ever go back to improv or go back to, that type of environment if that's something you wanted to do, but, I don't know. It's the same thing of like, taking that step and trusting yourself, and you're in charge of that trust. You're in charge of how you trust yourself in those situations. And I know this is like a hobby of yours in some ways, but like me stepping out into this podcast world and doing this, it's been one of those things where like I'm just trusting myself that like, hey, I'm going to do this. Some days it's easier than others, but it's something I'm enjoying and something that I'm getting to create and develop, and it's something that you are getting to do as well with rope darts and fire spinning. Why don't we just jump into that, because it's a great segue.
Absolutely.
Explain to people that don't know what you're talking about, if you can audibly describe to them what rope darts are and fire spinning.
Yes. So let me back up a step, and I'll explain what I would generally categorize as flow arts.
Okay.
FLOW, flow arts. And that kind of encapsulates anything that you would spin around, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on fire. Another common form is LED. And there's also just like practice props, which don't light up in any way.
Okay.
And people if you're familiar with the flow art, you're probably most familiar with something called poi, which is like it's like two balls on the end of like strings.
Yeah.
About 3 feet long, and people spin them around in creative patterns.
Okay.
And that's the most common one. What I do is called rope dart, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually originally is a wushu martial art from ancient China. It's one of the soft weapons.
Okay.
And what a rope dart is it's actually just those two things, a rope and a dart. And so, the rope can vary in length depending on your height.
Okay.
But it's generally your arm span plus your height. And then it should be like minus 2 inches from that. So it's just above the ground.
Okay.
And then on the end of it, traditionally would be like a metal dart or a heavy metal ball for stepping or smashing if it was a weapon.
Yeah.
But as far as the flow art goes, it's very much been turned into like what I do is it's a piece of Kevlar on the end that's soaked in white gas, a type of lighter fluid. And then I light that, and the Kevlar will burn for about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay.
And then I spin it around and do all my moves, and basically at that point I become a firebender.
Nice. Do you create the rope dart yourself, or is it something you buy like with the specific like links, or how does that work?
Good question. If I were a more crafty individual, I could create one. Many people who do rope dart create their own because it's relatively simple. It's a couple types of rope, some metal pieces to link the pieces of rope together.
Yeah.
And then the dart itself, and the dart head could be something like a tennis ball, or there's a lot of things you can make the dart head out, as long as it's got a little bit of weight to it.
Sure.
But and then some knots, and combine all that knowledge, and you've got a rope dart. But I bought mine. There's a couple different companies that sell either fire darts or LED darts or practice darts. So all said and done, I've got, I think, 5 rope darts to my name for all different situations.
Cool. Yeah. When you're and you said you move them around, or I don't know if there's a correct term, not swing them around, but when you move them around in different like patterns, or what is exactly, how does that work, or like how do you, it's like it's a skill, or it's a martial art, it's a technique to it. Like I've seen some of your videos that you've had online and stuff, but how do you know how to move it? How do you know where to go and what to do?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I've never really thought about what the term for moving it around would be. Just colloquially,
I want to say swinging, but I don't know if
that's technically right. What most of us would say would be either darting, or flowing, which would be an overall term. Like someone with a poi would also be flowing.
Yeah.
The creative movement that comes from you dancing with your prop would be called flowing. So how I know what to do with it, much like other martial arts, there's certain stances.
Okay.
And I will move between those stances, and as I move between the stances, the dart will move in different directions. It might be swinging forward or backward or horizontal.
Yeah.
And what most people don't know about rope dart is that it's almost entirely footwork.
Sure.
Like, let's say 80-90% footwork. And so if my feet are set properly, then everything else will work in harmony.
So it's kind of like a dance that you're moving an object around that is responding to the way you move your feet and move your body. Absolutely.
And so keeping my, what we call planes open, will keep the dart moving and not hitting me.
Cool.
And in most cases, whether like the momentum and where the dart goes, I'm not like physically swinging at it. Like if I want it to go to the left, I don't swing my arm to the left. I'll wrap it around my leg and twist my whole body to the left.
Okay.
And then that will change the direction and change the momentum. It'll catch on my leg. And then as I twist, it will go from swinging up to swinging down. It'll go from tying me to untying me. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about body positioning.
Sure. What do you like about it? What's the draw for you?
So many things. So I've
I
always
can tell
been...
that right there. You just had this like, you could even hear it in your voice. It's like a excitement of like talking about it. So I'm excited for this answer.
Yeah. It's so I've always been. I used to say I'm not creative. I used to, because like, I don't write, I don't draw, I don't create any form of art, I don't perform in the theater at the time. I used to not do improv. So I used to just say like, I'm not creative, I'm other things.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was necessarily true. I've just always been very movement based. I need like a physical outlet, like ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
And so rope dart has it's been the perfect combination of frisbee, or sorry, not frisbee, of movement and creativity.
Yeah.
And so as I move through the different motions, it's up to me to decide how to put them together. And that's really exciting because I can come up with things no one's ever done before.
Sure.
All the while, like, getting a good workout or exhausting myself. And so that's been kind of the draw at first. It was just kind of like, oh, this is an interesting thing. I kind of want to do it. I like performing. Let's see where this goes. But then as I learned more moves and entered what we call a flow state,
right.
I still remember the first time I like went into a flow state. And, for anyone who, like, I don't know, let's say draws, and they just like lose themselves in drawing and they just create. It's kind of the same thing with rope dart where, like, if the music's just right and I'm moving just right, once I know enough moves, I can just flow from move to move to move. And I actually counted the other day in my head. I was like, wait, how many moves do I know? And I know somewhere close to 50 plus rope dart moves at this point.
Nice.
And so I've got this fairly complex path that I can go in many different directions.
Cool.
But it took a couple of months of work to get there. My first few months of rope darting were very much learn this move and drill it over and over again. Yeah. It wasn't a creative. It was just like drilling because I didn't have enough knowledge to be creative. And then I slowly turned the corner of like, oh, I can be creative. And now I've got a level of knowledge where I can actually invent moves. I can create stuff from scratch.
Yeah.
Because I know the theory behind it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know it's. I mean, maybe it does tie in. It may sound crazy, like they're not connected, but wrestling. So I've been a wrestling coach for the last 6 years. This will be the first year that I'm not doing that, but there's a flow within that sometimes as well. And it's kind of like knowing the moves, knowing your footwork, knowing your steps, and that creativity, like everything you're talking about, like you could easily move into that world as well of being like, yeah, there's just certain positions, certain feels like you get. And I'm sure it's probably like the weight against your hand with the step or, whatever it is. But, there's certain feels that you get in wrestling where it's just like, I just know when to move. I know how to move my body. I know where I need to put my positioning of my hips or my feet or my hands or my head or whatever it is to like achieve the move that I'm trying to do, even if I don't know what that move is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd say that's like spot on.
Yeah. I like you were describing that and I was like, I understand. I get it.
Right. And yeah, it's not unique to rope dart or to wrestling. It's just more about like,
it's the flow. Yeah. Like you said, art could be the same thing. And people that write get in that same flow or that same routine or, people, there's different books and different stuff out there on the flow state just in general of kind of finding your flow state wherever you are in different scenarios or
I think when we were growing up people would have referred to that as being in the zone.
Yep. And now it has like an actual like I don't know if it's scientific but it's a name like there's like an actual like zone.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but you first saw this or learned about rope darts and fire spinning at Burning Man?
That is correct. I've been going to Burning Man for this year was my 7th year.
7th year. Whoa, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. And, I've been a part of a number of incredible communities, including, of course, Invisible Children. But I will say that the Burning Man community has probably had the most profound impact on my life.
That's cool.
And I'm just constantly blown away. And like, while I see a bunch of like my communities and interests, I can kind of like understand they have like a natural life cycle to them.
Yeah.
Burning Man's unique in the fact that I fully believe that I will be a part of burner culture for my entire life.
Cool.
and I see people of all ages participating in that event every year, that experiment. And it's just such a constant source of inspiration. And rope dart is probably the most profound inspiration for me to come out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to the heart of what you were saying, I was inspired last year, 2018. And, I'd always kind of admired fire spinners in general. I saw them as these sort of like exotic creatures, and I was like, they're so cool, and it's dangerous, and I admire what they do. And then in particular, all the different flow arts, the props that people spin, rope dart just always stood out to me. Not a lot of people did it. I didn't even know what it was called for a little bit, and it seemed particularly complex, which is always a draw to me.
Yeah.
And there was just a Tuesday at Burning Man, hot middle of the day, and me and a couple friends were just biking around, and my good friend Katie, she wanted to go by her friend's camp, and she's like, well, my friend spins rope dart, and he happened to be there, and him and I just ended up like talking for a good 45 minutes about rope dart, and I was just like picking its brain, and I was like, all right, where do I need to go to like buy the stuff to get started?
Yeah, you're like, I'm sold, so what's next?
Yeah, we were picking our videos, and like, I'm in the middle of the desert, and I'm very much like, I'm just writing down like dusty scraps of paper, like all these websites, and I'm like putting in my pocket. I'm like, thank you so much, and like, and then like the day after I got home, I was like on the internet ordering all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's and awesome. It was at first sight.
And the rest is history, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm pretty good at it. I'm still gonna keep at it. I have a long ways to go. But I there's no way to like. I struggle to acknowledge this because I don't want to be seen as bragging. But I do get a fair amount of praise of like how quickly I've grown with this prop, and it's not because I'm special in any way. It is purely because I love it and I practice it a lot.
Yeah.
I practice 3 to 4 times a week for hours, and it's just always fun.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like hard work to me.
Yeah, it's something you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The result of my growth is just simply lots of hard work. And actually, if I may, that's been one of the most important lessons I've learned here. I've had a couple of people in my life that I find particularly inspiring.
Yeah.
And they've told me that they've been inspired by my rope dart journey.
Yeah.
And that's like blew me away. I'm like, guys, what are you talking about? Like, you've, overcome substance abuse, and then now you make millions selling, like buying and selling companies.
Yeah.
And like, you're the inspiring one. But the point they were getting at, and the point I've come to learn, is that we kind of tell ourselves this lie of, oh, I'm too old to learn this. You like see like Olympians in their like teens and early 20s, and you're like, oh crap, like I'm a little overweight and I'm like okay at most things,
Yeah.
But
I feel that.
But the real trick is that like, okay, maybe you're not going to be the world's best at it, but you can become remarkably good at something remarkably fast.
Yeah.
If you put in time and effort.
Absolutely.
And so at the age of 31, I started spinning rope dart.
31. That's how old I am.
Now, I'm 32 now, but I was able to become noteworthy at it in a short span of time by just like getting after it. And so the lesson I've learned from that is that like, in the future, if I'm ever like, I'm too late to this, that's kind of like, I don't know if I can say this, but like bullshit.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
It's like giving yourself an out.
That's
something
exactly.
like I've been kind of harping on myself. I called one of my friends out. I was like, dude, you can't let yourself off the hook. Like if you don't want to do it, that's fine, right? But like you can't let yourself off the hook. Like you gotta be honest with yourself. Like not trying to like pull a wool over your own self, And I mean, preaching to the choir, right? Like I'm looking myself in the mirror when I say that, because we're all guilty of it. But I totally understand that as well. And so it's been like a year or just over a year now, a couple of years.
Yeah, just over a year. I kind of consider Burning Man my Jardiversary, so to speak.
Nice.
So
it's coming up, right?
Mid-September.
Oh,
would
so
be,
it just passed.
Because Burning Man it happens at the last week of August.
Okay.
And so a year and 2 months basically would be a year and 1 month, I'd say.
Okay, cool. And I've seen, so you've had the opportunity to like perform in front of people as well doing this, and has that really like inspired you as well?
Yes. I'm a bit of a showboat. I like attention.
Heck yeah, why not?
But I would like to get that attention in ways that is not annoying. So instead of yelling at a party, maybe I'll be on a stage where people actually want to see me do something.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's actually kind of the point I'm at with my rope dart career, so to speak. Career is a generous term. I'm looking for I'm just trying to get the word out there about what I do, what my passion is, and booked as often as I can. And I actually had a gig just this past weekend, a little like fundraiser event in Balboa Park.
Nice.
And that was great. And I'm just gonna kind of have to keep on hustling, as they say, which is very much just messaging people, talking to people like over and over and over again. There's a couple of rope dartists I look up to, and I look back on their journeys, and it took them about 2 years to get to a spot where they went from like starting their performance journey, which is where I am, to being like booked at like the biggest gigs, the biggest events, being on stage with major DJs. And so like that's kind of the goal I've set for myself of like, hopefully I can get there. I'm kind of comparing myself to the best in the business. So
who better to compare yourself to, though, Yeah,
right. And I'm fortunate enough to be in close contact with these individuals and count them among my friends. So like they are kind of taking on the role of mentors to me.
That's
in
awesome.
This craft.
That's awesome. Well, let us know. I mean, if there's ways that we can, help, or if there's ways people can find out. Is there a way right now that we can promote what you're doing, or ways to get involved, or ways to get in communication with you?
Ooh, probably the best would be either via Instagram or email.
Cool.
My Instagram handle. Oh, should we just like? Will you put it in like a link or something? Or
I will. Go ahead and say it, just so 3-time rule, right?
Yeah, right. So my Instagram handle is Rudolph _on fire. And Rudolph is actually my middle name, which is kind of funnily enough what I go by now.
Really?
And that's spelled Rudolph.
Cool.
Yeah. Not many people know that if they haven't been in touch with me. But I experimented at Burning Man one year. Like everyone kind of has a cool name.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm John. Like, what is that? So like, I'm just gonna experiment and just say I'm Rudolph, and nobody blinks twice at it. They're like, cool, nice to meet you, Rudolph. And I was like, oh, like, all right, I've got this really fun middle name. Like, is it? And then I tried the experiment again when I started at GoFundMe, and it stuck. So like,
there you go.
Almost everyone at work knows me as a Rudolph. And that's what's known by in the fire spinning community, that when I meet new people, I introduce them to me as Rudolph. I still answer to John, and Pockets as well.
Yeah.
When I hang with Invisible Children folk.
Sure.
Man of many names. But yeah, to get back to what you're saying, my Instagram handle is Rudolph _on fire.
Cool.
Or my email address is jrudolphbeaton@gmail.com. So that's the letter J, and then Rudolph, Rudolph, and then Beaton, B as in boy, EATON @gmail.
Cool.
Thanks for letting me plug myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanna hear more about. I like starred Burning Man. I'm like, I've known several people that have gone and whatnot, and everybody's experience seems to be, have similarities, but like they're different as well. And I didn't know that it was your seventh. That's really cool though. But I knew that you had been several times, and it's something that you loved. So, tell us about your first time ever going to Burning Man.
Yeah. So my first time ever going to Burning Man was 2013.
Okay.
What
was the inspiration?
Tyler Dunning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a fellow Invisible Children alumni for the listeners.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast as well. So,
I kind of figured he had been. I didn't know that, but I was like, if you haven't, you really should talk to stunning Tyler Dunning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I have to check out that episode. He's like the only one that still actively calls me Pockets.
Nice. Maybe I'll have to keep going just to keep it alive.
Oh yeah, we actually just had an adventure in Glacier Bay National Park, which he'll be writing some stories about on his site.
Perfect, cool. Yeah, I saw that he said that you guys were out there. That sounds like a cool.
Oh, it was fantastic, and it's been a while since him and I had spent time together. So reconnecting with Tyler was really a treat.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, Tyler went in, I think 2011, maybe 2012. I think 2011.
Okay.
Maybe 2012. I don't know. And we were talking about it, and he just was showing me these pictures of this otherworldly place, and I was like, "What is this?" It looked like he was on the moon, and I was just like, "This is not a real place." Like, what video game is this from? And he told me about it. I was just like, this sounds unreal. And at this point in my life, I hadn't been to any festivals, no music festivals,
sure,
nothing. And so I was like, well, this seems worth checking out. Fast forward to 2013, I was like, I decided I was going to go. I got myself a ticket, luckily enough.
Is it expensive?
Relatively, but not.
Yeah.
So all said and done, for like a ticket plus a parking pass and taxes, all that jazz.
Yeah.
It comes out to like $550.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's not bad if you view it by per day. Burning Man is rather prodigious in how long it lasts, and it's kind of 8 days long.
Okay.
So when you break it down, it's one of the cheapest festivals at a per day amount.
Yeah.
But there are other costs, like travel, food. You have to bring all your own food and water. It's all about radical self-reliance. It's one of the 10 principles. So there is a fair bit of cost, but I'll say all the hassle, all of the aches and pains of planning it, and the cost of like getting costumes together and whatever you want to do, like whatever you want to dress up as,
sure,
express yourself. It's all worth it. It's all absolutely worth it. And my first year, I had never been to any festival. I'd never been to Burning Man, and I made the insane decision to go by myself.
Would you recommend that?
Maybe.
It seems a little.
It's a challenge.
Yeah,
it's a challenge,
especially your first time.
For the more adventurous, I would say yes. The ability to truly go out there and experience Burning Man with complete and utter freedom is a true joy.
Yeah.
And there's something about like being there by yourself that is unique. Because if you go with your friends, or you go with what we call theme camps, which are like little communities there,
yeah,
you're gonna kind of have that safety of like, oh, like even if you're just with two friends, it'll always be the three of you, And as a result, like, you'll meet some people, but it's going to be that crew rolling around.
Yeah.
So by going by yourself, you're always going to meet so many amazing people because you're with nobody.
Yeah.
You're so open to other people when you're alone.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you do choose to go with other people, which I think is a bit more common, I would say factor in at least a couple of solo days. Like, entire days. We're talking, like, breakfast to the following breakfast.
Yeah.
Where you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of freedom can't be replaced. And so, you know, like, yeah, I actually do recommend it, but definitely do your research, be prepared. Make sure you have enough water, you have enough food.
Yeah.
It's a pretty gnarly experience, but, like, such a beautiful one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess maybe we should describe it if there's people that are listening that haven't heard of Burning Man. I mean, by this point in time, I feel like it's a pretty popular thing. Most people know, but I guess I've never been there. So how exactly would you describe it if you were to describe it?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
I know.
Many people have tried.
Yeah, I was going to say. And that's why I was like, man, I know, like, it's just hard to describe in general, just even knowing what I know. Like, there's big buildings. People create these different, like,
yeah
things.
I can take a stab at it.
Okay, let's hear.
So it is, you know, a week-long experiment in creativity and participation.
Okay.
And so what that means, here, one second. My phone's going to disconnect for a second.
Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, cool. So it's a week-long experiment in creativity and participation. And you mentioned that your friends have all had different experiences, and that's because you very much get out of it what you put into it. And so while it sounds like a cliche, it's not, and I can promise you that. And so let's go back to the point where I said that experiment in participation. Yeah. The people who go to Burning Man are called participants, not attendees. And the reason for that is intentional. And it's because, like, if you go to a concert or you go to, I don't know, Lightning on a Bottle or Coachella, like, those are cool festivals. And there's nothing wrong with them, but you're very much a spectator. Yeah. You are viewing the art that is being created, and you really don't get to interact with it beyond perceiving it.
Yeah, you're just kind of the consumer of whatever's going on.
Right, and that's fine for what it is.
Yeah.
Once you get a taste of participation, it's really hard to go back. All the artwork at Burning Man, so many parts of it, they're interactive.
Okay.
You walk up to an art piece and you expect to be able to climb on it, to engage with it, for there to be secrets about it, to interact. You know, like, there's art pieces that have been group puzzles that I coordinated a group of like 12 strangers to solve this puzzle in the middle of the desert, and it was amazing. It was this super fun experience, and you know, we solved this puzzle. The couple that created it, the artists, they were just kind of watching secretly, just like having the time of their lives, watching people like come together over the piece of art that they created, and that, like, in the essence is Burning Man. Like, you can go there and be a spectator. There's a ton of really cool DJs that show up. You can take your pictures. You can go to the big DJ shows and just look. But when you take a moment to actually, like, to take part in, to help build, to become a part of the city, it becomes so much more magical.
Yeah.
And you feel so much more when you begin to give back, when you begin to not just experience the magic, but create magic for someone else. You see them light up, and you're like, and then when they realize, like, you know, like, I volunteered this year to work as a greeter for 4 hours, and my shift, you know, was not a glamorous one. I was 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., which means I got up at 3 a.m. And it's middle of the night, dark, cold, because it's high desert climate, so even like 50 degrees, and me and a group of friends biked probably a mile and a half to get to the gate, and we were set up as greeters, and our job was to like be really peppy and welcome people. They've been waiting in line for hours, and we're like, hey, welcome to Black Rock City, like, we're stoked to have you here. Like, what are your questions? Where are you going? Here's some information. Oh, are you a first timer? Get out of the car. Like this is going to be like life changing. And we won't force people out of the car, but most people will say yes to engaging with that. And that's like their first taste of like, oh wow, this is awesome. And then people will be like, oh, like, how did you become a part of Burning Man? Like, like, how do you join the staff? And it's like, oh, we're not staff. We're just like you. We volunteered to be here. If you want to be working this shift tomorrow, you can. Yeah. Like, come out. Awesome. And it's
and that's kind of the nice, or the part that I've heard a lot about is kind of like your freedom to make choices, or just your freedom to like. It's a very inclusive, very welcoming, and you're just free to kind of flow amongst where you want to go and the things you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's different, is there, so there's the aspect of kind of like bringing something to share, right?
Yeah. So I touched on the 10 principles earlier when I mentioned radical self-reliance.
Right.
One of the other principles is gifting. Okay. And another principle is communal effort. And those two principles combined would be what you're talking about, kind of bringing something to share. And, for a lot of the like hyper devoted, that could be a big art piece. That could be a big theme camp.
Yeah.
But it could also be like a small thing. It could be extra water for like the newbie who didn't bring enough water.
Yeah.
It can be your time, which is a wonderful gift. Like, oh, you didn't bring anything specific? That's okay. Like, how can you volunteer to help the city run? Yeah. How can you help support someone who needs it? There's a lot of ways to gift. And I think that's what you're talking on when you say bring something to share. And like communal effort too, like if you want to build something, if you want to build something, coming together to build that experience for other people, is another great way to like quote unquote bring something.
Yeah, like maybe it's a giving, or gift or whatever that is better word for it. But yeah, like a giving of your time, a giving of a skill or a trade, or yeah, that's really cool. I really like that aspect that it's like everybody has something to contribute, and I really like that. One of these days I'm gonna do it for sure. I think it would be a really cool experience.
Yeah. I dude, whenever that is, please do hit me up.
I will for sure.
You can probably tell by the tone of my voice, I am clearly very passionate about Burning Man. I speak up often and openly, and like, it's like it's well known at work that I go to Burning Man. I'm like always encouraging people to go.
Yeah.
It is like a bit of a complex process to get there, but I'd be happy to talk you through it.
I will definitely let you know, and definitely be chatting with you, Mr. Beaton, Mr.
Please.
Pockets, Mr. Rudolph.
Yeah, right. There you go.
The man of many names. I know. And then at the end of Burning Man, it's known to be very eco-friendly as well. But at the end, is it everything gets burnt down, or is there one thing that gets burnt down? Like, isn't that kind of the idea of quote Burning Man?
And I'll be a good, unbiased person here, and I'll say it's I wouldn't describe Burning Man as eco-friendly, but I would describe it as like a thoughtful steward of the land they're on.
Okay.
And so I think as far as festivals go, there is no festival that comes close to the respect that Burning Man treats the land with, which is it's very intense. About leave no trace. People do a great job. Rarely do you see trash anywhere out there over the course of the week.
Yeah.
And everyone is expected to pick up what's called MOOP, matter out of place. So that means, if I'm biking along and I see a little piece of toilet paper blowing across the ground, I'm going to stop and pick it up and put it in my backpack.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe it's a little gross, but so are a lot of other things. And so at the end of the day, I'll usually have like a little pocket full of just like random bits of plastic or whatever I found.
Yeah.
And so I think Burning Man is truly like the best when it comes to being thoughtful about the environment and taking care of the world, the place that it's in. But eco-friendly, I wouldn't go that far, only because like it is hinging around burning lots of things, which is generally not going to be great for the environment. It also is like requires a lot of travel to get there. 70,000 people and probably about 35,000 vehicles. And then also, the power while you're out there, you're off the power grid. So all the power, a lot of comes from generators, from propane. These are all, sources of pollution. And I say this not to like shit on Burning Man. Like, I think that, to be honest, the environmental impact is well worth the positive result of people's engagement, like the mind and heart opening experience that people have.
Yeah.
Now, should there be improvements? Sure. And like, critics of Burning Man do like to harp on it and say, like, point out what I just pointed out as if it's some damning piece of evidence. But I just have to acknowledge it as
I don't think it's
of the festival. And if we're going to be concerned about the greenhouse gases of 35,000 vehicles, there's a lot of other festivals that could be applied to as well. So Burning Man's not being high and mighty about its environmental impact. I find the org, as we call it, which refers to Burning Man org, to be thoughtful and self-aware.
Yeah. Well, I think the effort is what. It's kind of like, do you remember, you've touched on it a little bit, but, oh man, I just blanked on his name. The guy, he wrote the book, Uncharitable.
Dan Pallotta.
Dan Pallotta. But, kind of like judging someone by their impact, an organization by their impact that they're making versus the, how much of your income, and this doesn't really relate to that, but the impact, and you touched on it with, it's having a big impact on people's lives, but also there's intentionality, and it sounds like people are trying to be the best stewards of the space and the area that they can be, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there'll never be a way to measure this, but I at least believe that like the positive impact on the humans that go to Burning Man with an open heart and mind, is worth the cost of like making that happen. Yeah,
which is cool. And I mean, man, you should definitely be a spokesman. Like, man, you got me like all like excited and thinking about it now. I'm like, man, when can I do it? Like, when can I?
I'm honored. I'm delighted to know that impact's been had.
Yeah, no, it's been something I've thought about and wanted to do, and I guess knowing that you go every year is helpful, because then I wouldn't have to go. At least I would know somebody there if I needed, advice at that time. And I don't know, maybe I could talk other people into it, but you can't. It's hard to get people going for like 8 days. Some people have other things going on and just aren't willing to make that time. So
yeah, I mean, I would say for those of us, I don't know if this fits you, but for those of us on limited PTO, from work, that's the biggest sting. And like, being entirely honest, like, there are international vacations I would have taken that I haven't.
Yeah.
Because I've gone to Burning Man instead, and that's a trade-off, and a tough one.
But I think it speaks to the impact that it's had on you, and maybe you could speak to that. Like, what is it that you feel that you gain from going? I know that's like a personal thing, and I know that Burning Man is kind of this personal experience, this personal journey. And so, like, if that's a out of bounds kind of question,
no, not at all.
Okay.
What I gain from going to Burning Man? A lot of, I would say, perspective. Perspective on people and the world. What it means to like give and to be creative. I would have never in a million years thought I would like. I'm involved with a theme camp called Pink Heart. I'm involved pretty heavily with their fundraising. I'm a bit of an ambassador for them. I believe heavily in like what Pink Heart stands for, which is like creating a lighthouse for body and soul. For like we basically, I won't go into this too much.
This is at Burning Man.
At Burning Man, yeah, it's the theme camp that I'm a part of.
Okay.
We basically create like a rejuvenation space for people, like a place where they can get some shade, rest, get some ice cold water, energize. And you know, like I am a big part of this camp now, and like I help with the fundraising. I help like tearing down the camp at the end of the week, and you're just like, I'm doing things I never would have thought I had done. But more than anything, it's just like, I think Burning Man has like given me absolute faith in humanity, which I know is like a crazy big thing to say. But like we haven't so much going on in our news cycle. There's plenty of like just awful things that happen that it's very easy to lose faith in the world, faith in mankind.
Yeah. Honestly, that's one of the reasons that I just don't. I try to stay keep a healthy distance away from it, because I feel the same way, and it's been an inspiration for this. It's like positive storytelling, telling people's lives and bringing them closer. It's part of, as I've been creating the business plan and kind of like the mission statement of Invisible. Here we go, man. Words. Whoa. Of Crazy Face Uno. It's been a lot focused on that, of like bridging that gap between this division that we see in the world and in our country, and of seeing like just people are humans. We all have a story. We all have interests. We all have things that, we get to experience and do, and we get to learn from one another. And I think that it's huge. And even you talking about your experience at Burning Man, or your experience of like taking that leap, it like gives people, it inspires people, it gives people courage to do that. And I love, again, everyone has a story. Everyone's story matters. And I think that that's just majorly important. And, so I guess I echo what you're saying. Like it makes sense. Like I understand exactly what you're saying. It gives you this being able to see that there are good people out there.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the one last thing I'll say about Burning Man, I'm happy to keep talking about it, is that there's a bit of I think people often talk about like, oh, like Burning Man used to be cool. It's being ruined now by like all the selfies and the glamour models that go or whatever. And like, while there is like some truth to that, I think it's actually more perspective based about like, you could go to Burning Man and you could intentionally seek out the few camps out there that cater to the wealthy, or you could go to just like the biggest shows and where like everyone's going, and you're gonna see like possibly some like self-centered activity, a little bit more selfishness, a little bit more vapidness. You see that, and if that's the areas you choose to place yourself in all week, that will be Burning Man to you. Burning Man is just Coachella in the desert.
But it's what you make it.
Right, and if you choose to place yourself in other spots, like I would say the best nights I've had have been nights just wandering out what we call Deep Playa, which is outside the city where a lot of the art is, just wandering around this vast desert, finding random pieces of art and interacting with the people who also just happen to be there. There might be 12 people, and you might be 2 miles from camp out in the desert. And you just share these little moments.
Yeah.
And like, I actually made a point this year of like, hey, you know what? Like, I've tried going to big sound camps, as we call them, in the past, and I just never seem to have fun. I feel like I'm crammed into a concert venue. You know what? I'm just not going to do that this year.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to any big sound camps, except to like see how the architecture was set up.
Yeah.
And I had a fantastic time, and I was consistently inspired, and I think it was my best burn yet.
Nice.
And so like, it's very much going back to that theme of like,
what you get out of it, what you put into it.
If you're expecting to see Instagram models ruining it, and that's what you go looking for, well, that's what you're going to find. But there are other things out there.
That's cool. And it's pretty big. You mentioned it, like, it's thought of as a city, but there's how many, like, is it like a blocks? Would you call it? I mean, it's pretty well designed, right?
It is pretty well designed. The best way I could describe it is the city is kind of shaped like a C, the letter C. And each street is concentric circles ringing outward. So the innermost street would be the tiniest letter C, and then housing that would be a slightly larger letter C all the way out.
Okay.
Like a dozen or so times. And that's kind of what the city looks like.
Gotcha.
But the overall event space is pentagon shaped. And so if you house that C within this giant pentagon, a good 40% of it is going to be where what we call Deep Playa.
Okay.
And so Burning Man, the city inside Burning Man is called Black Rock City.
Gotcha.
Because it's in the Black Rock Desert. And then the open space is called Playa or Deep Playa, depending on where you are.
Gotcha.
As far as the size, I don't know the exact measurements, but it's got to be at least 2.5 miles wide.
Okay. That's bigger than I even anticipated, to be honest. So, yeah.
Big. So, like, when we talk about, like, 75,000, 80,000 people going to Burning Man,
yeah,
you can definitely still find places to be totally alone because you are spread out.
Yeah.
And to bike from one side to the other, in those conditions on the crappy bikes that you're on, is usually like, I would say 30 minutes.
Yeah.
To bike across, maybe a little longer.
It's a trek.
It's a trek, man. If you and you don't often have service, so you might be going across the city to find your friend, and you get to camp, and you found that they've already left. Well, that's just how it works. And you know what? Make the best of it. You're gonna find something else to do.
Yeah, that's cool. Man, that's really cool.
Yeah.
When you look at your life, kind of retroactively, a lot of times, John, when I'm on the podcast, I go back to childhood and I kind of work to present day, and I knew I wanted to do things a little bit differently with you just because I did want to talk about all the things that we've already talked about, to be completely honest. And
yeah. Make time for those things.
Yeah, but like when you look back at like your life, what do you think are some of like the themes or things like that have motivated you, that have moved you to be who you are today and to experience some of the things you've experienced and make some of the choices that you continue to make, like through rope darts and the flow arts and whatnot?
Oh, it's a tough question, man.
Yeah, it's a deep one.
I'm not entirely sure, and I don't if you asked my childhood self where I would have ended up, I would have been nowhere near this.
Yeah.
It's not like I always wanted to go to festivals. It's not like I was raised by hippie parents or anything like that. Like I deviated wildly, and with my parents' support, which I think has made it all that much more wonderful and easy.
Yeah.
But I would say it kind of, and this is a cliche, but I think it's true. It goes back to a kind of a relentless sense of adventure. And it started out as a pursuit of doing what's right. That's like before I joined Invisible Children as a roadie, fall 2009.
Yeah,
I was deciding between me and a couple friends getting together and helping one of my friends run for local political office in Arkansas, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Either doing that out of college, or that was the original plan. And then Invisible Children came to my school, and I was inspired, and I applied to be a roadie.
Yeah.
And that set off this whole crazy chain of events for the last 10 years.
Right. It just opened the doors for so many things, for sure.
It did. It really did. And I couldn't have known at the time. And the that sense of adventure and doing what's right, it started to expand after Invisible Children to, like, doing what's right also meant, like, self-love and taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I think that's something that we've all had to, like, learn, and some people have learned it a little sooner. I feel like I was a little late to that party of, like, self-love.
I learned Invisible Children.
Yeah, but we you know, like, most people we've had on here, like, hey, we sing Invisible Children's praises, and to the outward people, you know, there's always a different conversation we have internally, but, you know,
sure,
there were a lot of things, and that was one of the reasons that I left. You know, when I did, I had opportunities to stay if I wanted to, and I chose not to because I needed to take care of myself, and I did, and yet I still didn't know what that meant, and I'm still learning, you know, and I think that that's important in life, and I think it's something that you're never going to really completely fully understand. You're always learning about yourself and learning about what you need as an individual, and I think that your needs are constantly and continually changing.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It's just something we have to take one day at a time, and 1 week at a time, 1 year at a time, but constantly look inward and take care of yourself, for sure. And I think maybe it's changed a little bit in recent years, but I think that there's a resistance sometimes of that, like, a fear of being selfish, that comes out at times for people that want, you know, when you're taking care of yourself. And I think you dance on a fine line, for sure. And
yeah, but you can go too far.
But at the same time, I think we need to give ourselves permission to look after ourselves and to slow down and to take a deep breath and listen to ourselves and listen to what we need.
Yeah, you know, one of the best, like, daily reminders you can find for self-love is actually every time you board an airplane, and they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And you can't help other people, like, if you're not.
Exactly. And it connects to the old adage, you know, you're not ready to love other people if you don't love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, you know, it started out as, like, I'm going to sacrifice everything to do what's right to make the world a better place. And slowly I've learned is, like, yes, I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to love myself. And that's become this is going to sound weird, but it's become a relentless pursuit of fun for me.
Yeah.
Where, like, as soon as something isn't challenging me or helping me grow in some way, then it's like, okay, like, this has been great, but it's time to move on and to find something else. Like, that's what's happening with improv and rope dart. That's what's happened with Ultimate. Yeah. Maybe someday it'll happen with rope dart. Maybe there'll be some new hobby.
Yeah. And you think it, like, and you move on, and you move on to the next thing. Yeah. Thank you for contributing to me. Thank you for getting me to where I am, and it's on to the next thing. It's like shedding your skin. I was listening to The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell, and I've watched it a couple times now, and he brings up the snake as this, like, symbol that's prominent throughout, you know, like, different religions and different whatever, and how it's like the shedding of the skin. It sheds its own skin, and I don't know, that just, like, made me think of, like, trying new things. It's like you're shedding your old skin and you're, like, growing into the next thing that you are, moving into that next direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say you're most proud of to date?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Pulling the tough ones here out at the end. So.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to go back to the same topic, but I'd have to go with rope dart, to be honest.
Cool.
Like I've done a lot of stuff, I feel like, but nothing has felt quite like this, and I've also never gotten the amount of positive feedback I have gotten from rope dart. With ultimate, people are like, "Oh, you're pretty good," or that was a good throw. Improv, it's like, that was like, sometimes they laugh, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But for like context, like 2 weekends ago, I was spinning fire at a festival just for fun, and this guy came up to me and was like, "Oh, how long have you been doing this?" I was like, "Oh, I've been doing it for a year, but I do it a lot. I'm really passionate about it." And he goes, "Dude, I've been teaching fire spinning for a decade, and what you have is special. Like, keep doing that."
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
And I got chills just saying that and thinking that. So like, I guess like, I haven't accomplished rope dart. There's still so much to learn. But it's a beautiful community. And definitely what I've done so far with this hobby, this passion, is definitely what I'm most proud of, even if it's not like a thing.
You should be. That's awesome.
Yeah, like a certificate.
It's something you found that's made an impact on your life, and I feel like there are just different things throughout people's lives, and some come and go, and some have different impacts that are greater than others. For me, wrestling is one of those things that's had a great impact on my life. It really has. It's helped me learn about discipline and hard work and what you put in, you get out. Some of these same things that you've talked about, and it sounds like this has been one of those things that's had a monumental impact on you, and
yes,
and
definitely.
I think that's awesome. I think that's great. I've got a couple deeper questions too, and then we'll close out.
Sounds great.
Do you ever think of your legacy? What?
Yeah.
Like what you want your legacy to be?
I think of my legacy, but I don't think of what I want my legacy to be.
Yeah.
And
I don't know that you should. You know what? And that's the thing. Like, I think about my legacy too, but I don't think it's impossible to know. But I think something to strive for, something to strive towards. It's almost like a goal or kind of question, I guess, in some ways. But I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to that, whether you should or shouldn't know.
Yeah. I do want to be remembered, and maybe that's vain, but I want to be remembered for the positive impact I had on people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to be, if I had to set a goal, I would want to be one of those people that people are like, he had an outsized impact on other people's lives. He it was particular, he did a particularly good job at bringing positivity to the world. And I don't necessarily need my face carved on a mountain or logged in a history book of oh, this was president of such and such.
Yeah.
If I can have ripples through many communities and be remembered by lots of people, and for as long as they live, and then we all are forgotten eventually, then I think that would be a legacy well made.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I support that 100%. Looking back, what advice would you tell little John?
Little John, running through the forest. That's actually what I did as a child. What I would tell him is that pursue the fun. And it's there's an adage that I kind of like. It's pursue the fun, and then in addition to that, do no harm but take no shit. And I really like that one of
do no harm but take no shit. I like that.
Right. Take care of the world, take care of those around you and your loved ones. Don't be aggressive, don't be violent, don't be mean. But that doesn't mean you have to be a pushover. Yeah. And really, pursuing the fun is the big one. That's something I've learned now, and I've been learning for a few years, but it's something I wish I'd known, in high school and college. I was a little more concerned with like what people thought of me and like trying to fit in. Of course many people were.
Yeah.
But I really grew into myself when I learned to be radically myself.
Yeah.
I'll take it back to Burning Man. One of the principles is radical self-expression. And to be clear, that's not self-expression, which is still a good thing, but radical self-expression. Like, who are you really? Like, and like, how can you express that? It doesn't matter if that's like zany, off the wall, or whatever. Like, radically express who you are. And for me right now, like, I've been rocking a green mohawk at work ever since Burning Man.
Nice.
I've never had a mohawk before, really. I had it a little bit at Invisible Children, kind of.
Yeah.
It was like this rat-taily thing for when I was in 2009. But I now have like a proper mohawk. It's dyed a ridiculous color.
Nice.
And I think a lot of people might have hesitation of like, like, will that reflect poorly at my job or at my career? Yeah. Will people have less respect for me?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. And maybe I'm naive, but I think that's on them. And if you're gonna judge me negatively by that, then like that may represent work that they need to do.
Yeah. I did something recently that's like similar to that. I just got rid of it actually, but for about a month I rocked a like nice just mustache, and I just owned it. Like it was kind of an accident. And I was like, this is kind of fun. I'll do this for a weekend. And I went outside of our apartment here in Florida. And like, I instantly got self-conscious about myself and like how people thought of me and all this. And I was like, whoa, like it smacked me across the face. And I was like, whoa, like where did that come from? Like, man, you care way too much about what people think about you that you don't even know, like I don't even know these people. I'm brand new here. I could be whatever I want,
Right.
And, yeah.
That mustache.
Yeah. And so I like challenged myself just to like keep it for a while, and I just got tired of it and was eventually like I got over the like shock and awe of like what people thought of me, and it was more just like, can I just move on from this now? And so I got rid of it.
That's totally fine. You were done like that.
I learned my lesson. I learned the lesson that I need to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I'll lose the mohawk eventually. So that's what I would tell myself, because I didn't start learning that. I began learning it at Invisible Children, and I think it was Burning Man that really like helped me bring that lesson into full focus.
That's cool.
And so I wish I'd learned it earlier, but I make a point to not like regret things I didn't do earlier.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I think it's good, dude. It's been really fun. Let's close things out. Anything you want to leave us with? Obviously, I want to direct people back to your Instagram, and I'll tag you there. And Rudolph, RUDOLPH _ on fire, ONFIRE. Or you can email you at jrudolphbeaton@gmail.com.
Yeah. If anyone has general questions for Burning Man, I'm happy to engage in conversation. I'm not paid by them. I'm just really, really passionate.
Yeah. Cool.
Like if anyone has fire gigs, doesn't even have to be in San Diego or California. Like I would love to like talk to them and come out and spin wherever the heck they may be.
Cool. Yeah. Let's get you some attention. Hopefully you can get a few more followers, and maybe something can come of it.
Yeah, would love to. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Dude, I've never done something like this before. And I'll just say that it's been super freaking fun. And like, it's like not only been like kind of a cool, like creative thing, but then also like nice to get to talk to you a little bit. Like, I know we talked a lot about me, and that's kind of like the point. If we caught up on every episode, people would be like, okay, I heard this.
Yeah.
Would love to like, hear more about you at some point.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, dude.
Let's catch up on life one of these days. We'll chat We'll chat when we close out here.
All right, sounds good, brother.
Cool. Let me close this out. John, again, thank you so much. It's really been great to talk to you, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show today, visit us on Facebook and Instagram. You can like and comment on the posts. If you want to go above and beyond and get the word out, please share the Crazy Face Uno podcast with your friends and family, or just random strangers. We are welcome to everyone. Please visit crazyfaceuno.com to buy our merchandise and to donate. Your contribution helps us share more stories like John's and more stories just like yours. Really appreciate you all out there. Thank you so much for listening. We love you. Thank you. Peace.